Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. We're stepping into the shoes of a delegate delivering a dynamic, high-stakes diplomatic briefing on the future of our oceans. But before we get into the heavy diplomacy, just think about the smartphone in your pocket right now, or the sneakers on your feet. There's a massive probability those items arrive to you via global shipping routes. Imagine you're representing the Kingdom of Sweden at the International Maritime Organization, the IMO, tackling the crucial agenda of life in water. How exactly do you balance the massive global trade of those everyday goods with the desperate, urgent need to protect fragile marine ecosystems? Well, that is exactly the diplomatic tightrope we're going to walk today. Sweden's core philosophy really boils down to this one simple but incredibly powerful idea. Healthy oceans and prosperous maritime trade absolutely should not be competing objectives. We simply do not have to choose between protecting our waters and sustaining the global economy. This is the foundational argument you've got to keep in mind. We aren't here to just shut down shipping. We're here to make it sustainable, ensuring economic development and ocean conservation actually reinforce each other rather than constantly clashing. To turn that philosophy into action, Sweden has actually been elected to the IMO Council for the 2026 to 2027 biennium. They're stepping up specifically to represent states with special interest in maritime transport. And it makes total sense, right? Sweden is a nation with a deeply vested interest here, possessing a massive coastline that stretches for thousands of kilometers. The sea is literally an intrinsic part of their national identity and their economy. They want to make absolutely sure the IMO functions effectively as the ultimate global regulator of shipping. Our agenda for this briefing covers 6 key areas: the maritime dilemma, combating marine pollution, transforming sustainable shipping, protecting marine biodiversity, empowering developing nations, and finally, a united ocean resolution. Let's start with Part 1, the maritime dilemma, navigating the false choice. The immediate instinct for a lot of people might be to simply halt international trade to save these ecosystems. But consider this. Roughly 90% of Swedish imports and exports rely directly on the shipping sector. You literally cannot turn that off without totally crippling the economy. So the Swedish view is to transform, not restrict. You don't ban ships, you innovate. You use strict, science-based regulation to force the industry to adapt, creating a future where sustainable shipping is just the everyday norm.
Moving on to Part 2, combating marine pollution, the source-to-sea approach.
Sweden champions a highly comprehensive source-to-sea procedure to combat severe issues like eutrophication. If you aren't familiar with that term, eutrophication happens when excessive nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus enter the water, causing massive, harmful algal blooms and severe oxygen depletion. It is a devastating problem in sensitive bodies of water like the Baltic Sea. Fixing it means targeting pollution at the source before it ever reaches the water, massively upgrading how ports handle ship waste, and decisively banning harmful discharge practices.
Now here is a brilliant bit of diplomatic pragmatism. In international negotiations, delegates absolutely love to propose flashy, entirely new treaties to solve problems. But Sweden asks a very practical question. Why invent new mechanisms when we can just demand stronger implementation of the existing MARPOL Convention? MARPOL is the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships, and it already covers oil, chemicals, garbage, and air pollution. The real win is enforcing the robust rules we already have on the books, not continuously reinventing the wheel.
And Sweden isn't just making empty promises here. They have a proven track record. They've hosted the World Maritime University in Malmö since 1983, educating global maritime leaders. Looking ahead to July 2025, they're hitting a massive milestone by implementing a strict national ban on open-loop scrubber discharges in their territorial waters. They are taking tangible, immediate steps to hit that crucial 2030 target of zero plastic waste and 30% marine protection.
Which brings us to Part 3, transforming sustainable shipping, innovation over restriction.
Sweden is pushing hard for a predictable framework to build this green future. Instead of a random assortment of ideas, they offer a cohesive narrative of transformation. This means creating dedicated green shipping corridors, aggressively funding the switch to clean alternative fuels like green hydrogen and ammonia, and crucially, using life cycle certification to legally verify that those fuels are actually green from production all the way to combustion. Combine that with mandatory energy efficiency upgrades and a global maritime technology fund, and you're literally mapping out a completely decarbonized global supply chain.
Of course, in any diplomatic negotiation, you're going to face pushback. A fellow delegate might directly challenge this and ask, why should one country dictate domestic capabilities to another? Sweden's response is vital here. They explicitly seek multilateral standards, not unilateral dictates.
It's all about working collaboratively through the IMO to establish common international rules, ensuring every single nation is playing by the exact same fair, scientifically justified standards.
Let's look at Part 4. Protecting marine biodiversity, ecosystems, and the human element.
Aside from the stuff being pumped into the air, biodiversity is heavily threatened beneath the surface by invasive species. Think about it. When a massive cargo ship takes on ballast water in one part of the world and discharges it in another, it isn't just carrying electronics or grain. It's potentially carrying an entire alien ecosystem hidden right inside its hull. This unintentional transport absolutely devastates local food webs, which is why Sweden argues that strict enforcement of the Ballast Water Management Convention is critical to protecting native marine life.
And we absolutely cannot forget the human element. The oceans are navigated by people. So reviewing the STCW convention isn't just about updating simulator training so crews can handle high-tech ships. It is fundamentally about updating working conditions to explicitly prevent bullying and harassment at sea. You just cannot have a sustainable, modernized fleet without ensuring the safety, dignity, and overall well-being of the seafarers actually operating it. All of this builds into a complex, highly volatile geopolitical landscape. Protecting the ocean today also means confronting modern, headline-level hybrid security threats. We're dealing with rising conflicts affecting innocent passage, illicit shadow fleets entirely evading environmental oversight, and incredibly dangerous interference with satellite navigation systems. These malicious actions actively endanger both the seafarers and the maritime environment, particularly in sensitive, highly trafficked regions like the Baltic Sea.
This leads us to Part 5. Empowering developing nations, an inclusive transition.
Consider this crucial reality. Environmental ambition without implementation capacity is simply a declaration. It's really nothing more than nice words on a piece of paper. Developing maritime nations cannot be left to shoulder the immense financial and technological burden of these new environmental standards all by themselves. If they fail to adapt just because they lack resources, the entire global effort fails. By proposing comprehensive capacity-building measures, Sweden is proving that technological transition in the IMO must be paired with equitable support. A global maritime network is ultimately only as strong as its least equipped port. This requires active technical cooperation, funding to upgrade global port infrastructure, and training the next generation of leaders. Sweden is actively pitching a global maritime environmental capacity-building program to guarantee that literally no nation is left behind in this transition. Finally, we reach Part 6, a united ocean resolution, the diplomatic path forward. To draft a truly effective IMO resolution, member states have to follow some clear, decisive steps. It's about choosing practical cooperation over isolation, driving real technological innovation to prevent industrial stagnation, and actually enforcing the frameworks we already have. This is the exact blueprint to ensure future maritime regulations are not just scientifically justified, but economically viable and universally adopted by everyone. There is a massive difference between a hollow objective and an actionable plan. An ineffective resolution just politely asks member states to reduce pollution. But a Swedish-style actionable resolution proposes building concrete tools, like establishing an IMO-coordinated one-ocean maritime data platform to actually track, verify, and monitor that pollution. You have to build the shared infrastructure to see any real measurable change out there in the water. We're going to close this explainer with a final, provocative thought. The ocean belongs to no single nation. Its protection is therefore the responsibility of all nations. As we look toward the future of global maritime trade and the health of our shared planet, you have to ask yourself, are we finally ready to accept our collective responsibility to ensure that cleaner ships actually create healthier seas? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.